Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, a little bit of background about Klarna first. We were started in 2005 in Stockholm, but our headquarters in the U.S. is about a mile north on High Street, right above Lemongrass, if you're familiar with the area. Today, in general, we're going to talk about alternative payment methods and how they can increase the conversion rate on your site. And of course, we are one of these alternative payment methods, but just like Chase said with Afterpay, that's another one that's out there. And we really want to cover all the bases in terms of what is the best fit for your site and let you guys make your own decision in that regard. So we're just kind of going to talk about the general financing and how that can improve conversion rates. At the end, Kristi over here is going to kind of dive into how Shopify will allow you to integrate into your site, and Shopify does a really great job of making it easy for you. So she'll show you the exact steps that you're going to go through to add a payment option. But first, let's talk about cart abandonment. And cart abandonment it's kind of a dirty word in e-commerce because it's something everybody's going to run into. And honestly, it's an issue for every site, the biggest ones and the smallest ones. You see these numbers up here, and your eyes probably got a little bit wide because $4.6 trillion is a staggering amount. And this was according to Business Insider. They estimated that in 2016, $4.6 trillion was lost due to cart abandonment. The good news is that $2.75 trillion, so 60% of that, is going to be recoverable. And it's going to be through ways of checkout optimization, so primarily things like adding payment options to your site, increasing the checkout flow, making it easier for your customer to actually get to the end. All right. So to understand why people are abandoning their carts, we have to look into how they're doing it and really where they're coming from when they abandon their carts. So if you look at a 2017 study from Adweek, they estimate that 39% of traffic on e-commerce is coming from mobile sites, or from mobile devices, rather. And that's actually a really great thing for e-commerce because it means anybody can buy from anywhere. You could be lying in bed on your smartphone. You could be at a beach on an iPad or something like that and still check out. But the problem with it, as you see, is that mobile carries a higher cart abandonment rate with it. It's about 13% higher on average than your desktop. And it's pretty easy to understand why. Mobile devices are more cumbersome. When you're typing in your credit card with your thumbs, it's not an enjoyable experience. On a laptop or a desktop, it's easier. So one of the biggest things with that is going to be increasing how fast somebody can actually get through your checkout. Adweek had also done a study. I'm sorry, this was from Bloomberg. They had done a study on people that did abandon their cart, and they asked them why. 28% of them said that it was due to a long checkout process. And if you can imagine, that fits directly with the mobile numbers as well. At the same time, 73% of the consumers that they polled, the same consumers, said that they would switch to a site that had a better checkout option for them, that made it easier for them and made them more confident with that actual purchase. And the things that are really impactful in that regard are going to be your slow load times. You want to make sure your page is zippy. Your unresponsive pages, same kind of thing. The required registrations is a really big one. You want to make sure that you have that guest checkout available for customers. Nobody wants to sign up at every place they buy. The lengthy checkout process in general, so try to shorten as much as possible. And that's sort of our theory as well. We want to get the customer through as quickly as possible. We don't want those moments when they say, I'll do this tomorrow. So we know there's a good chance they don't come back, right? Maybe they see an ad at Best Buy for a sale, or they see another site on Facebook that has a similar item, and recency bias makes them go, I'll just shop here. And in particular, in fact, millennials are prone to this. In 2017, 42% of the US population was either a millennial or a Gen Xer. And if you look at the numbers for how those people like to buy, they spend on average 6 hours a week shopping online. They also prefer to shop online. And in fact, when we polled merchants, 90% of them stated that the payment solutions are going to be largely driven by the needs of these millennials and these Gen Xers. So specifically, sorry, I keep pressing the up and down arrow keys wrong. Specifically, what we're looking at here is 56% of consumers polled said they would buy more online, they would spend more money, they would buy more frequently if these payment options were available to them. And even more important than that, 67% of millennials don't even use or have a credit card. And if you can imagine, that's a generation, and I'm part of it, they're sort of broke. We don't have a lot of money. We still want to buy stuff, and we want something that can fit in our monthly budget. So that's where alternative payment methods can really help out with that generation. And when you look at in particular on their buying trends, you see that it's a generation that's on the go. It's very mobile. That's only going to increase as time goes on. People are going to use cell phones more and more to buy stuff. They require an emotional need. They want to see personalization. There's been a lot of talk, and in fact, Chase's blog, the Electric Eye blog, has a lot of good posts about how you can personalize the shopping experience, how you can direct customers to feel like your site's a little more unique and stand out from the rest. And finally, the simplicity of the checkout. And the generation, the millennials, and I can say this because I'm one of them, we get confused easily. We need something simple. We got to get through it fast. We don't want to sit around and try to think how we need to check out. We don't want to do a text verification. We want to get to the end process and weight our product. So what are the top retailers doing? Payments.com had done a study, in fact, of the top 30 merchants in e-commerce, and they found that on average they're offering 6 different payment options at the checkout. And when you look at the specific things they also do, obviously the optimizing for mobile is huge. They're removing the need to create an account, we already talked about. That's very important. Introducing personalization features. The loyalty programs are going to generate return customers and bring people back to your site. And the free shipping is something that's incredibly important these days. You have to have free shipping on your site, even if that means adding it to the actual product price. People expect free shipping now, and you can really thank Jeff Bezos for that one. What are the options out there? Of course, you have your PayPals, your Amazon Pay, Google Wallet, the Apple Pay. Those are really important to have on your site. Chase had a blog post about 3 weeks ago, if you guys saw that, about these options and how important they are. When somebody has one of these, it's an easy checkout. It's a one-click conversion for you, and they're going to feel more comfortable using it at your site. Nobody has ever said there's too many payment options at this checkout. What people say is they don't have my payment option at this checkout, and then they go to the site that does. So you want to make sure you cover all your bases in that regard. But for the customers that don't have the budget to spend all that money at once with the Google Wallet or the Apple Pay, there's a lot of services out there that are going to allow them to break up their payment over time. It's going to increase their buying power, and it'll overall increase your conversion rate as well. So Klarna is us, of course. Affirm is another good one. Afterpay, Sezzle, there's a ton out there, and it's really important to look into the one that you think will be the best fit for your site, because we all do things a little bit differently. In terms of the actual financing, there's really 3 different ones you're going to see primarily on sites. There's the traditional point-of-sale financing. That's what most people are probably familiar with. A credit check is typical. Longer term, like 6 months, 12 months. We do a deferred interest period, and a lot of our competitors do as well, so you can kind of pay same as cash. Consumers these days expect that to be instant, so that's a very important thing to look for. You want that instant financing. Invoicing is one that I think kind of flies under the radar a little bit, and I think it's actually really great for increasing your conversion because what it's going to allow you to do, and in really all of these cases, the way that it works, you see down below, the merchant's going to be paid up front in full. The payment provider will then take all the risk on, and the customer is going to pay the payment provider over time. With invoicing in particular, all the customer is going to have to do is tell you where to send the item. And then they're going to come to us. We're going to take all the risk on. They'll pay us down the road. So we see a giant increase in conversion, particularly for the late night hours. If you can imagine, especially when you pair this with like an ad campaign on Instagram or Facebook, people are lying in bed on their smartphones, scrolling through, they see a shirt or a table they like, click on it. This really incentivizes the impulse buy because they don't need to worry about getting out of bed and getting a credit card. They don't need to worry about getting their social typed in or even their confidence in the quality of the goods because they can get them before they have to pay for it. Finally, the kind of new player in the game is these equal installment payments. The way that this works is it's going to be a debit or a credit card. In Sezzle's case, they use a bank account you link. And in most cases, again, they charge you every 2 weeks to try to line up with the payment schedule. But the great thing is there won't be an approval process for it. So we see an increase in conversion with this in particular. In general, customers feel like the flow of it is more traditional. They can just enter their credit card like they normally would, but they still don't have to pay it all up front. They pay in 4 installments. The way we do it is every 2 weeks, and it's a 6-week total installment. Typically, there's not going to be any fees for the customer either. No interest rate, no late fees. So finally, if you guys have been kind of zoned out the rest of the time, this is the slide you want to pay attention to because these are the numbers that are going to impact your site directly. What we see on average with adding payment options is a 30% increase in your conversion rate. That's gigantic. That's immediate from adding a payment option to your site. We see that people spend more when they have that buying power. On average, your order sizes are going to be 24% higher than if you had a customer just checking out through a traditional credit card processing service. We're going to see people buy more. They're going to spend more money. They're going to buy more frequently. They're going to tell their friends about it. They're going to say, hey, this was easy. You should check out this site. I didn't have to pay up front for it. And really, the important things to consider when you're looking for these payment options, you want to look into the things like, how's their customer service? What kind of APR are they charging? What's the general buzz around this company? And there's a ton of options out there, so I'd highly encourage you to really look into them all, but it's extremely important to have a payment option on your site where customers don't have to pay up front. I'm going to pass it off to Kristi. She's going to show you exactly how you would add these options to your site. And again, Shopify makes it incredibly easy for you.
All right, we'll try and keep it. So yeah, hopefully James has gotten you excited about thinking about alternative payment options and putting them on your site and showing you why you should. So if you want to, what does that mean? What do you have to do? So you don't have to hire a developer for this. It's really pretty easy, and we want to make it as easy for you, so it's something you can just try out and see what the options are. So first, just to level set and show you where it is, the screenshot on the left here is the third page of Shopify checkout. So the customer's already entered their name and address, gone through their shipping and selected that, and so hopefully you're all familiar with that page. This is just from our demo store, because that's where I can easily grab some pretty generic screenshots in that sense. And so here, probably most of you have credit card, maybe you've got PayPal, but do you have other options there? So this is the time when you'd add alternative payment options in Shopify. It'll show up here. Once the customer clicks through there, if you have a review page, that might be next, but then they'll get redirected to a page hosted by your alternative payment provider that you've selected here. So it's actually switching over. And so that page is going to look different depending on what alternative payment provider that you picked and have whatever information they need for whatever option they're choosing. So Klarna has a couple options here that you can choose. You could have both, depending on your site and what you sell, of what's a good choice. But in the case here, you can see Slice It, you can see Pay Later. And my example here is a Pay Later, so pay 30 days after so a try before you buy kind of idea. So once the customer goes through all that, does whatever they need to do on that page with your alternative payment provider, and then they complete their order, it's going to show up in your Shopify store just like any other order, and they get a Shopify confirmation page just like any other Shopify order. So you want the flow to kind of stay the same. There's that one little part in the middle, but that's taking an order with an alternative payment provider. So choosing your alternative payment provider. You can go in your Shopify store, under your settings, click onto your payment providers, and then scroll down and find your alternative payments. So here's an example of drop down of which ones are available. So some of the ones that James mentioned, Affirm, Afterpay, Klarna, Sezzle, and a few others. And there's even more out there. This is the list that Shopify has decided should have public gateways available to any store in your market. So these are kind of the main ones that they've chosen for you. But picking from there gives you some of the ideas. And then the screenshot on the right, once you click on an alternative payment provider, you're going to have some information you need to enter there. So in the case of Klarna, and probably most of them, you have a username and password kind of an idea. So not a whole lot you've got to do, but those are the steps. Once you actually have that and click Save, then that alternative payment provider is going to show up on your Shopify checkout. So don't enter nonsense there, as that will show up, but it won't actually work. So you really do need to make sure you've got everything lined up. So how do you get some credentials there to enter ones that are going to work for you? So most of these companies here have a chance that you can just go on a website and sign up online, or if you like to talk to people, talk to some sales folks and get a contract. But somehow you're going to have to get something signed up where you tell the company a little bit about your store, who you are, what you're selling, and then they'll do some review, and you'll end up with a legal contract there of underwriting and whatnot, and in the end, you'll get some credentials. Those are the credentials that then you'd enter in that store. In our case, there's another step here. We also have a Shopify app that needs to go in conjunction. So the previous step there I call a gateway behind the scenes. Same thing for alternative payment provider, and that's the Shopify term. But in addition to the gateway, you also have a Shopify app. But Shopify generally does not allow payment providers to have public apps on the App Store, so you can't just go get it there. But we do combine those two together, and to make that super easy, we've made a little install wizard that will run you through, and it takes under 2 minutes, as long as you've got your credentials, walks you through installing your app. So that's a little YouTube video that you could see it in action if you wanted to see all the steps without actually doing it. You can see how quick and easy it can be so that you don't have to have a developer. We get that through, and then that app enables us to do the rest of the things that we need to do. So by the time you've gotten your gateway, you've gotten your app, gone through that install, you're live and you're good to go. And so then you can test it out in your store and see the page load and make sure everything looks good. But another reason I want to point out on this slide, when you're comparing which alternative payment provider you want to work with, think through all the options just like James said. What's the best for your customers and what's the best for you as a store owner? So you want to consider managing those orders once you get orders in with your alternative payment provider. So in the sense of, do you need another system? So if you capture in Shopify, do you have to go to another site and capture elsewhere for that store? So you want to get paid. The alternative payment provider needs to know about that too. So with ours, with the app, the order management's all built in. So when you fulfill on Shopify, it's capturing on Klarna, and that's all done for you. So everything is the same as what you're used to in your Shopify store of capture, cancel, refund. You're all there. And some other interesting things, as James was continuing to talk about, making Shopify checkout interesting to make it easy for your customers. So a lot of things he mentioned, you're a little constrained because that's the benefit and sometimes the downside with Shopify. You can get everything pretty quick and easy out of the box, but you just got kind of something generic out of the box, which is a great product to start, but could you tweak it? Can you customize it? Some of the things James mentioned, you can't really change the checkout flow completely, but there are things you can tweak. So one of the interesting things is you can change some of the language. And again, it's pretty simple, so maybe you didn't think about it because what they give you out of the box is probably a fine start. But one of the things when you have an alternative payment provider, as I said, when the customer's clicking there, they're going to get a redirect to another page. That takes a moment. You've got a chance there, though, where your customer's there on this page. So instead of some generic text that says you're being redirected, how about something interesting, cool, and fun? So like on our demo store here, where you can try the experience and you're not actually buying anything, but you can see it in action on a real Shopify store. We said, smooth is happening. That's one of our taglines of being smooth, if you check out our swag back there. But you could put anything, and it's custom to your store and interesting, and those little tweaks make it seem a little more interesting for your customers. So to do that, if you're interested, go to your online store, into your theme, drill down a little bit, find the languages under actions there, and you can just search for any text, and you can change a whole lot there. So again, small effort, but maybe makes it a little more fun and something easy you can do. So in this case, you'd search for redirecting, you can find all that. You can change the title of the page as well. And one of the other interesting things, I believe Carl mentioned at the beginning, doing development. So yes, there's a chance. We talked about Shopify Plus stores being able to write custom scripts for checkout. So I wanted to throw out a little thing here. If you are a developer or you're having one or you have some interesting things that you want to do, there's an app out there, script editor app, that you can put some checkout scripts on your store. Now, be awfully careful with development. That's a way you could actually break your checkout and then nobody's getting any orders from you. So be careful if you do that. Make sure you test it and make sure you know what you're doing so that you don't break anything. But it's a nice option that it is available out there if you do have that need. And that's all we had for here. I think we'll have questions at the end. But anything that we don't cover tonight, you can always reach us at shopify@klarna.com.